Next up, podcast listeners, Tucker Carlson drops episode 1 on Twitter. So Tucker Carlson's contract, my understanding is with Fox News, is that he can't go to a competing network. And Fox News is still paying Tucker Carlson, even though they refuse to put him on the air. So it's like he's fired. He's in this never land of being fired, and he can't be on the air because Fox News just wants to pay him to not be on the air. It makes no sense to me. But they also are paying him because they don't want anyone else who is in the legacy media to put him on the air. What the contract doesn't say is social media. He's allowed to be on social media. Tucker is. And so Fox did not foresee when they signed the contract with Tucker Carlson that he could actually launch video streaming on Twitter, which has an enormous following. And of course, Tucker already has an enormous following, but Twitter in and of itself has, millions upon millions of followers. I mean, Elon Musk alone has over 100 million followers or something crazy like that. So Tucker Carlson decided, well, there's a way around my contract with Fox News. They're paying me to not be on CNN as a hiree of CNN and to compete with them. They're paying me not to be on One America News. They're paying me not to be on ABC, CBS, NBC, and so forth, etc. So I will go on Twitter. So he launched his first show on Twitter. And here is the article in the Epoch Times. Former Fox News host Tucker Carlson released the first episode of his new show on Twitter this past Tuesday night. That was yesterday, delving into the mysterious destruction of a dam in the Ukraine. As of today, quote, "We have come to Twitter, which we hope will be the shortwave radio under the blankets," Carlson stated towards the end of the video. "We're told there are no gatekeepers here, in that it turns out to be false. We will leave. But if in the meantime, we're grateful to be here." So to restate that, he didn't say that exactly great. He said, "We're told that at Twitter, there are no gatekeepers, like no censors. If that turns out not to be true," Carlson said, "we'll definitely bolt. We won't be here. But in the meantime, Twitter seems to be grateful that we're here and is not going to censor us." Now, here is what's different from Twitter Spaces and broadcasting, if you will, on Twitter, which is social media, versus the legacy media. The legacy media has to go to commercial, right? And they always have an angle. There might be center right, center left, far right, far left, whatever. But you can never do a real long format on the legacy media. Well, Twitter allows you to do a long format. That's why David Sachs did a long format interview with Ron DeSantis, and Ron DeSantis, Governor DeSantis, announced his candidacy for president of the United States on Twitter because he could actually have a real conversation as opposed to being cut off with a soundbite, because sound bites are clickbait. And we all know that. And Twitter allows you to have the whole conversation. It's holistic. And I really think this Twitter Spaces approach is going to be really kind of the beginning of the decline, or an acceleration perhaps of the decline of legacy media. I'm not saying legacy media is going to fail altogether, but their viewership's going to go down significantly because people are going to say, you know what? I can just go on Twitter Spaces and really get the full story. Obviously, you can also go on YouTube and so forth and get the full story because you can have the long format. But Twitter is actually a social media company, and that is where Tucker Carlson went so that he wouldn't be in violation of his contract with Fox News. So Carlson signed off the show, dubbed Tucker on Twitter, saying that he will be back on the platform with much more very soon. The former Fox News host, who exited the network more than a month ago under unclear circumstances, no one still knows why he left, why he was fired, also made reference to the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam in the Ukraine this week. The Kakhovka Dam was effectively Russian, Carlson said after the clip started. It was built by Russian government. It currently sits in Russian-controlled territory. The dam's reservoir supplies water to the Crimea, which has been doing so for the last 240 years, home of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. And he added, blowing up the dam may be bad for the Ukraine, but it hurts Russia more. And for precisely that reason, the Ukrainian government has considered destroying it. So, really, once the facts start coming in, it becomes much less of a mystery what might have happened to the dam. And a fair person would conclude that the Ukrainians probably blew it up. But just as you know, you would assume they would blow up Nord Stream pipeline as well, the Russian natural gas pipeline last fall, Carlson stated. And in fact, the Ukrainians did do that, as we now know. At least that's what we're being told. Later, he commented on the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who has been near university feted by Western governments and praised in corporate press. Quote, Ukraine, as you may have heard, is led by a man called Zelensky. We can say for a dead certain fact that he was not involved. He could have been. Zelensky is too decent for terrorism, he said. So, Carlson is really questioning the war in the Ukraine. And he's questioning the war in the Ukraine with Russia because obviously it is a client state of the United States of America. The Ukraine is, as well as a client state of NATO. And this is important because we are supposed to, as Americans, we're supposed to know what's going on. We're supposed to have critical conversations about where our taxpayer money is going for wars, and why we're sending more and more advisors to assist. Clearly, we're doing that via NATO. And why we were there and what the end game is. Like, what are we trying to accomplish? What's the real danger? Please tell us. This is important. We should know. You can't have this conversation on mainstream media because the deep state is shutting this stuff down, ladies and gentlemen. It is most definitely shutting it down. And I have no doubt that for Tucker Carlson to have come out on Twitter Spaces to have talked about, for his very first episode, the Ukraine and Vladimir Zelensky, this must be a reason why he was fired from Fox News. He must have been fired because the deep state weighed in and told Fox News, we don't want critical thinking about this particular war. It's not allowed. And that in and of itself is ridiculously dangerous. And compare and contrast that Twitter Spaces competition to legacy media, where you can just go right on Twitter and you can have a vast conversation with anyone that you want without being censored, at least for now. Compare that to CNN. CNN hired Chris Licht. He was supposed to bring more moderation to CNN, more critical thinking, more balance to CNN. So if we're going to have someone on the left, we're going to have someone on the right. That's why they brought in Chris Licht, because they wanted to appeal to a broader audience. Well, guess what? He stepped down as CNN CEO after a scathing profile in The Atlantic. Why did that happen? Well, because all of the left-wing newspapers hated the fact that CNN would actually be more of a balanced network and or was trying to bring more balance to their network, which would be very helpful for CNN. They'd actually be able to build a real audience and they'd be able to provide their audience some critical thinking. Not allowed, of course. And so, Warner Media, obviously, who owns Warner Brothers Discovery, this big conglomerate which owns CNN, decided to dump him because all of the left-wing folks said, you know what, this guy is not the right person, primarily because he brought Donald Trump on the network. And obviously it was to, in part, bring some balance, because not just Trump, DeSantis, all of the different candidates that are running on both sides. Why not bring them both on? CNN doesn't want to do that. They don't even want to bring Robert F. Kennedy Jr. onto the network, because if they do, then they won't be doing the work of the deep state and the far left. And so, once again, you have the interference of the apparatchiks in our federal government who have intervened with corporate America and gotten Chris Licht ousted at CNN. But meanwhile, in Twitter, what do we have? In Twitter, we have actually free speech at the moment, at least until the deep state decides to figure out a way to maybe knock off Elon Musk or get Elon Musk or leverage Elon Musk and his other companies somehow to hire some sort of woke CEO at Twitter. That hasn't happened yet. But we should watch that really, really closely because it's probably possibly going to happen. And I just think this is a new era in American media. Tucker is on literally the cutting edge of American media. It is really fantastic. And I wish him the best. And believe me, I hope and pray that Twitter stands and remains as the free speech platform of the United States, because it would be the only one. It would be the only one. I know you're going to say, well, Rumble too. And that's true. That's true. And there are other platforms, but Twitter is by far the biggest. It is by far the only one that can truly compete at the moment with the others. Rumble, I think, too, because it's video-based as well. That's a good thing. And so if you get a chance, by all means, watch Tucker Carlson's episode 1 on Twitter.